Today, my dad and I are here at Chickamauga Battlefield in North Georgia, and we're here to attend a ranger-guided program to learn all about Reconstruction after the Civil War. That's coming up next.
Alright folks, welcome here to the Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park. As many of you know, my name is Lee White. I'm one of the Rangers on staff here, and thank you for coming out today for this special program, which does make me have to say something I thought I was through saying, and that is we're going to be looking at events that occurred 100 to about 150 years ago. Thought I was done with that in 2015 with the end of the war, but carrying this now a little further beyond the war. What we're going to be looking at today with this car caravan tour is basically four groups of people on this battlefield who ultimately will keep on fighting. Because contrary to what we normally believe about the Civil War, you know, there are all these paintings of Lee's surrender, and everybody goes home and it's all over. Far from it. One soldier who fought here at the Battle of Chickamauga at the time of the surrender of the Army of Tennessee in North Carolina in April of 1865, wrote a letter back to his family noting on April 29th, 1865, "I never had been more disgusted with the conduct of our high officials in the late turn of affairs. They have escaped to the Trans-Mississippi Department laden with plunder, carrying off all the gold of the Treasury Department, which should have been distributed among the soldiers who had fought and bled for this ruined cause. I am of the opinion that temporarily this war is ended. We are not subdued, but rather than push matters to a bitter end, we yield the struggle until our country is able to renew it with greater chances of success. We are overpowered, but our spirit and determination that the South shall be independent is unconquered." And he wrote this then at the final days of the war, just a few days before he would have to make his way home. But indeed, that's the mood some of these men have. And when they get home, it's going to be a world unlike what they had seen before. 1 out of every 4 Southern men of military age were dead. They came home to utter devastation. Social order turned on its head. Half the capital wealth gone. Kind of like if you would have imagined on 9/11 that the attacks had not just been the Twin Towers, but they had taken out all of Wall Street. The financial situation this country would have faced in the aftermath of that, that's what they're facing now. Banks have no money. It's just a world that's just incomprehensible to them, because you're coming from a society that before the war had been the 5th wealthiest society in the world. Now it's one of the poorest. And so they come back, and very shortly, although they're glad to be home, they're glad to be with their families, but very soon, feelings like his, bitterness, began to come in. But one thing that really begins to unsettle them, and one thing that they will really becomes more and more of a thorn in the side, is the fact that now that especially for many of the poor Southern whites, they're no longer the bottom of the social. They're no longer next to the bottom of the social order. They're on the bottom of the social. Because in December of 1865, with the passage of the 13th Amendment, slavery is abolished in the United States. So now all these people formerly enslaved African Americans are also now on that same equal footing with them. And for many of these men, that's a bitter pill that they just will not be able to quite stomach. Many of these men had been brought up and been heavily reinforced by society that they were better than the slaves, both on a social level, but also on every level, intelligence-wise, life-wise, they thought they were better. And now this hard realities for something that many of them just are not able to do. And so you're also going to have it coming also from the men who had been the former ruling elite, the planters now, who now had hundreds of, had over 4 million African Americans enslaved in the 1861. Now there's a big manpower shortage. And now if they're going to have these people working for them, they're going to have to pay them. And they're going to treat them as employees rather than property. And that's going to start causing some consternation as well. So much so that some states, starting with Mississippi, will start passing things called black codes. If you know anything about the antebellum South, there were a lot of things called slave codes. These are all different types of rules that slaves had to abide by. Well, guess what black codes are? Just erase one word, put in another. And basically, it was restricted African Americans' freedom, compelled them to work in a state of near slavery. You had to sign a contract, and the plantation owner controlled the contract, and basically you didn't get paid until you fulfilled the terms of that contract. Guess what you never quite were able to do? Fulfill the contract. Other things that happen. If an African American child is orphaned, they might be apprenticed to one of these plantation owners. So you can guess what that entails. And you've got quite a few things like this that are all going to start rolling around. They're going to have you're going to have a special set of laws over here for African Americans and a special set of laws over here for whites. You're going to have special courts, one for treat African American cases, one to treat white cases. Minor crimes are punished severely. Or you might not even be committing a crime, and you would still be punished. One of the best examples of this can be seen with what all this comes about. It happens in Tennessee. When a former plantation owner by the name of Amos Black killed one of his employees one day, a man who had been one of his former slaves. And he then tells everybody was aghast at what had happened. He had asked that his man take a team of oxen to a neighbor's. And he had done it. So he comes out, pulls out his shotgun, and shoots him in the head. Then proceeds to tell everybody around, you have been fooled with the Yankee lies, that till you thought you were free, and you got so you would not obey your master. There is no law against killing you, and I will kill everyone I have to if you do not obey me and work just as hard as you did before the war. So this is the mindset that's starting to happen now with all these men coming back. In the North, words of stories like this start making it to the newspapers, and stories start being published about this, and then there starts to be stirrings in Washington about what's to be done. Chicago Tribune published an account. We tell the white men of Mississippi that the men of the North will convert the state of Mississippi into a frog pond before they will allow such laws to disgrace 1 foot of soil over which the flag of freedom waves. But things are going to start to build up. In Memphis, you're going to have 2 big incidents in 1866, the year after the war. You're going to have an event that becomes known as the Memphis Massacre, which is a group of Union soldiers, African American Union soldiers. Terms of enlistment were running out in Memphis that day, and they were confronted by a group of angry Irishmen, and ironically, many of them the police force in Memphis. And what results is because known as the Memphis Massacre. 46 dead African Americans versus 2 whites. 91 homes burned, 8 schools, and 4 churches. The city seemed to be under the control of a lawless mob. Then, about a little over a month later, down in New Orleans, 200 black veterans were marching through the streets with signs about wanting asking for the right to vote. And that was a thing that was being discussed in the government in Louisiana at the time, was to grant this to the African Americans, but specifically veterans, men who had served in the military. And so as they're marching through the street, they're confronted with a mob, and a trouble breaks out. The result ultimately boils down to 50 dead African Americans and 200 wounded in what followed. One eyewitness stated, "I saw policemen firing and shooting the black people. They were shooting poor laboring men with their tin buckets in their hands, and even old men with their canes." So this type of event, and then it becomes a painful realization coming in at this time that President Andrew Johnson has no desire to deal with this. Indeed, he seems to be coming across that he is on the side of the people perpetrating all of these acts. Indeed, Andrew Johnson was from Tennessee, had been Abraham Lincoln's vice president, and of course assumed the office with Lincoln's assassination. But he has thought that initially he would be the great avenger. The only problem is he's now people he had despised and spoke out against for years. He now wants to be their friend, it seems. And so he really starts alienating many of the Republicans who had been his allies. And in November of 1866, midterm election year, you have the election of the radical Republicans taking almost all the main seats. And now things are going to change with all of that. And thanks to New Orleans amendments. First time, by the way, for those of you who like a little bit of trivia, that one party dominated both houses of Congress. First thing they do is pass First Reconstruction Act, which Andrew Johnson tried to veto the first time, first time they then override a presidential veto. They basically divided the South into 5 military districts and disbanded their state governments, with exception of Tennessee, which had already come into the Union before even the war was over. But the Deep South and all are going to divide these 5 military districts. Military governors will be appointed, new elections will be held, and they had to adopt a new state constitution to guarantee black men the right to vote. Many former Confederates were also now denied voting rights. They were disenfranchised for a certain set of years. And for many, this was an act of war. White outrage will roll over as the world turned upside down. And then that's going to lead to a little meeting one evening over here in Giles County, Tennessee, in the little town of Lasky, where 6 former Confederate soldiers, 3 of them having been veterans of the Battle of Chickamauga, are going to have a little meeting and form a little organization. And we're going to go out and look at that a little bit more on the battle. But before we leave now, and before we get too far down this road, these men are resisting Reconstruction. How do you resist something like this? There's an obvious way that a lot of them are going to resist it, but what are other ways that you can also see resistance to this? Anyone?
Civil disobedience. Not following the laws.
Civil disobedience, not follow the laws. What else? Music. You're going to have some songs written. If you've ever seen the movie The Long Riders, one of the great westerns with the Carradine brothers and many sets of Hollywood brothers from the 70s. In that one scene, they're playing an old song. This is an actual song that was written immediately after the war. And I think it does a great job of capturing the bitterness that filled many of the men's hearts. The song is called Good Old Rebel. and it was actually written by Major Inez Randolph, Confederate officer, but the way the song's written is from someone who was a much more uneducated person, is the way the lyrics go. But just share just the first bit of the song, and I think it shows you how many of these men felt. Oh, I'm a good old rebel. Now that's just what I am. For this fair land of freedom, and I'm glad I fit against it. I only wished we'd won, and I don't want no pardon for anything I done. I hates the Constitution, this great republic too. I hates the Freedmen's Bureau and uniforms of blue. I hates the nasty eagle with its brags and fuss, and the lying, thieving Yankees. I hates them wuss and wuss. Now this, the idea that, everything was going to get along smoothly after the war, a song like that kind of challenges that. And another way you resist is you can try to control the narrative. One of the comments I hear working here in the history field all the time is that the victors write the history. I would challenge that. If you look at what many of these Confederates do, who is the most popular Civil War general?
Robert Lee.
Who's the second most popular? You get it. They control the narrative. Stonewall Jackson. Joke goes with George Patton as he was being raised up, of course, a Virginia family and all. He said he grew up, in his home, and there was a painting of Robert E. Lee and Jackson on the wall, and he grew up thinking that they were God and Jesus. So that kind of tells you the world that they're going to create. Basically, these former Confederate veterans are going to start an idea called the lost cause. And it will be their way of dominating the narrative. And some of it and it's still very alive and well today on many factors. Even with the Battle of Chickamauga, there's certain things about this battle that up until even recently in our Park movie, part of the lost cause was in that film until we got our new one. So, that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to look at initially a man who is responsible for fighting the lost cause, or not fighting the lost cause, establishing the lost cause on paper. That's his way of resisting. And then the others are going to resist in a more violent fashion.